Hello everybody and welcome to another Top 5 Records video. Today I'm going to talk about one of the big bands. One of the bands that made rock and roll explode worldwide in the late 60s, early 70s. And of course I'm talking about Led Zeppelin. And I'll immediately kick off the list with the number 5. Which is actually the first record that made them serious musicians with the critics. It is Physical Graffiti, and it's the only double album they did, only double studio album they did. And it is a very interesting record because they get much more influences of symphonic music than they had before. Before this, Led Zeppelin was much more straight on rhythm and blues, but hard rock kind of band. They're somewhere between hard rock and blues rock. And this is much more symphonic. John Paul Jones starts to compose more. You see different influences on this album, and it's a very, very good, very impressive album. It sounds great. It has Kashmir. Fucking love Kashmir. It's a great song. And I wouldn't say start off your Led Zeppelin experience with this because it is a great record, but it's the least typical Led Zeppelin record. But nevertheless, Led Zeppelin never went into extremes as someone like David Bowie. So number 4, I think a lot of people will be surprised that this one is actually in 4, but here it is, Led Zeppelin II. And I love Led Zeppelin II. It is a true power force, this record. I mean, this is a whole lot of love. I mean, what an opening. The Lemon song, I really like. Thank You. Thank You is a beautiful song. Moby Dick, Ramble On. This is such a great album. It has so much energy. This is the second British pressing. It's from 1969, but it doesn't have the misprint in it, and the misprint is set to sound amazing. This one is already... It blew my mind the first time I heard this pressing. Before this one, I had an American pressing, and avoid American pressings of Led Zeppelin records. Try to find British or German. Germans are also very good, but British or German pressings. This one, it sounds stellar. It's awesome. It sounds very forceful. I really like that about Led Zeppelin. And the next one on the list, the number 3, might come as a surprise because I've always thought that Led Zeppelin in their, let's say, shorter versions, the studio versions, that they are the best. There is this, the first live release they did, because they had an immense live reputation, was The Song Remains the Same. And I thought the songs were way too long. Just a couple of songs on the record. The improvisations went everywhere. So I thought Led Zeppelin live is not my kind of band. And there is one record that completely changed my mind, and it's this box set. How the West Was Won. It is amazing. And this one is actually very interesting because of the Led Zeppelin story, the Led Zeppelin narrative. I mean, they started off as a British band doing basically a lot of rougher, tougher versions of American classic blues songs. There are some acid songs which they made into hard rock songs. They were very influenced by American artists. And when they went to America, it was really a situation of how the West was won. These guys somewhat invented the typical rock and roll touring. There is this Frank Zappa song, The Mud Shark Incident, which happened, I believe, during either this tour or the tour before it. I'm not going to explain the story of the Mud Shark. I mean, children might be watching this, but if you Google the Mud Shark Incident and listen to the Frank Zappa song, that's about a Led Zeppelin tour. And the book The Hammer of the Gods, the entire brilliant live reputation of Led Zeppelin that was never really caught on The Song Remains the Same or on the BBC sessions. It is here. It were 2 live shows recorded. I mean, there were 2 days in between. It's on Long Beach Arena and the LA Forum, and you hear a band which is taking over, and the songs are just as long as on the Song Remains the Same, but somehow on this box, on this album, on this live record, they are working. You are experiencing the full force of a 1972 Led Zeppelin touring and taking over the world. The image, the photograph, people might recognize it, of Robert Plant on the balcony of a hotel room, and he sees a billboard of the band. I mean, it's that impressiveness. You can hear Led Zeppelin being the biggest live band of that time on this album. How the West Was Won. Try and find one. It's amazing. So now I'm gonna go to the number 2, and it's a very tough choice for me, because the number 2 is the album with which I fell in love, and just before making this list I changed the number 1 and 2 constantly because I love them both equally. The number 2 is the one which I believe was the first or second album of Led Zeppelin I heard. The other one was Presence. It's not on this list. Great album. But I fell in love with Led Zeppelin on this one, Led Zeppelin IV. And there are a number of reasons for that. Because the set list of this one, and this is the first British pressing, by the way. I mean, this has Going to California. It's a beautiful song, often overlooked. But the side 1, I will read side 1 to you. Black Dog, Rock and Roll, The Battle of Evermore, and Stairway to Heaven. Need I say more? It is awesome as fuck. And I just said Physical Graffiti was the record from which they somewhat departed from the typical blues rock, hard rock genre, but these songs, I mean, Stairway to Heaven is absolutely brilliant. Also, of course, partially inspired, and I could make another video about all the inspirations from Led Zeppelin, because you can make a record with all the songs which they took credit for, but which are actually covers, mostly by a lot of black musicians, which, you know, there are people who say white people stole the blues. I find that somewhat a painful remark from time to time. But in the case of Led Zeppelin, it's definitely true. I mean, some of the songs, I mean, Willie Dixon wrote them, you know, but it was all settled in court. Number 1, you already see it. It's also their first record, Led Zeppelin I. And why is this on number 1? Because it's basically the record I play the most. This one, and it has to do with the pure force, the pure force of energy. This is the first time in history when a white band, a white vocalist, white guitar player played the blues convincingly and in a unique manner. I usually think that the blues is at its best when it's classic, when it's from Chicago, when it comes from the black tradition. Whenever I hear someone like Eric Clapton, and Eric Clapton is a very, very, very good guitar player, but I hear him sing, you know, I need a unique force, a unique energy, and a lot of white blues musicians just don't have that. Most of the time they don't have it. And this is the first record that fully convinced me. Might even say John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, but this one, because it also took rock and roll beyond. I mean, or rhythm and blues beyond it. I mean, this has Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. The way the guitar starts, it's baby, it's you shook me. And now they credit it for Willie Dixon. I see on the back of this, and this is the first American pressing, which sucks. I also have a German pressing, but the cover is all worn out, so I show this one. But this luckily has the right credit for Willie Dixon. Dazed and Confused, which was also not actually written by Led Zeppelin, but it's amazing. Communication Breakdown. This is a masterpiece. It is truly original. People have found a new sound, a new force. Well, that was my list for today. I'm curious what you guys think. Respond below, agree or disagree. and see you in the next video. Bye.